I'm Charmaine Jenkins, and this is my presentation on my dissertation topic, racism in academia. Racism and microaggressions still seem to be a significant issue in higher education, and they're adversely affecting Black faculty at most of the nation's colleges and universities. Despite anti discrimination legislation, affirmative action initiatives, and higher numbers of Black students graduating with doctorates, research reveals a persistent problem of underrepresentation and low academic status of African American faculty member at most U.S. colleges and universities. This is primarily because retention rates and job satisfaction are low for Black educators. Research reveals most Blacks in academia were systematically and significantly disadvantaged on all measures relative to whites, and that presents serious, persistent obstacles to their recruitment, retention, and success. Research such as Strategies to Survive and Thrive in Academia, conducted by Salazar in 2009, and Unmasking Racial Microaggressions by DeAngelis in 2009, find that Blacks are still being denied access to higher education faculty positions, even when qualified, that Blacks often don't receive the necessary support to ensure sustainability, and Blacks are consistently subject to systematic discrimination that results in emotional, advancement, and retention issues. The result of all these factors are that Black faculty members are often tenured less, earn less, work at less prestigious institutions, and have lower academic rank, and less academic stature compared to their white peers. In short, faculty status and treatment in U.S. higher education continues to be racially problematic. The most common form of racism displayed in higher education is microaggressions. Racial microaggressions are defined as everyday insults, indignities, and demeaning messages sent to people of color by white people who may be unaware of the hidden messages being sent. Microaggressions commonly take one of three forms. Microaggressions can be microassaults, which are conscious and intentional actions or slurs, such as using racial epithets, displaying a Confederate flag, or deliberately serving a white person before a person of color. It's akin to what we know as that old racism. Then you have micro insults, and those are verbal and nonverbal communications that subtly convey rudeness and insensitivity and demean a person's racial heritage or identity. Lastly, there are micro invalidations, and those are communications that subtly exclude, negate, or nullify the thoughts, feelings, or experiential reality of a person of color. These brief and commonplace attacks play a major role in the barriers to retention, promotion, and tenure for Black faculty. While many predominantly white institutions, PWIs, establish goals to attract and retain diverse faculty, they have not been successful. Research suggests that the reason might be because focus is on the most blatant forms of inequity, inequality, and disadvantage, which allows the more common and covert forms of racism to be ignored, permitting racism to be normalized. The purpose of my study will be to examine how to raise white faculty and administrators in higher education's awareness and sensitivity to microaggressions from the Black faculty perspective. I intend to use critical race theory as a framework in that quest. Critical race theory, CRT, is a set of theories that argues that racism in the United States life is normal. It was developed to treat colorblindness within critical legal studies, and then CRT challenges white privilege and exposes deficit-informed research that ignores and often omits the scholarship of people of color. Critical race theories is defined as a framework or a set of basic perspectives, methods, and pedagogies that seek to identify, analyze, and transform those structural and cultural aspects of society that maintain the subordination and marginalization of people of color. CRT is interdisciplinary and incorporates intellectual traditions and perspectives from sociology, history, ethnic studies, and women's studies. There are 6 boundaries of CRT in education that provide a framework assessing inequities, and they are that it argues that racial inequity in education is the logical outcome of a system of achievement presided on competition. It examines the role of education policy and education practices in construction of racial inequity and the perpetuation of normative whiteness. It also rejects the dominant narrative about the inherent inferiority of people of color and the normative superiority of white people. It rejects historicisms, and examines the historical linkage between contemporary educational inequity and historical patterns of racial oppression. It engages in intersectional analysis that recognizes the way that race is mediated by and interpreted with other identity markers such as race, gender, and sexuality. Gender, class, and sexuality. And CRT in education also agitates and advocates for meaningful outcomes that redress racial inequities. CRT is not merely here to document disparities. CRT's core idea provides a framework for analyzing the work already done in education and still needed. Black faculty needs and experiences surrounding covert racist actions should be researched. The research will help to determine what actions to address within academic institutions. Discovery can begin with the following questions. What are the unaddressed microaggressions, if any, Black faculty has been subjected to within the last 2 years in their institution? What microaggressions, if any, have Black faculty been subject to within the previous 2 years at your institution which were addressed? What kind of support have Black faculty received from their direct supervisor when they have a race-based issue on campus? What restorative or punitive remedies were offered concerning race-based issues? And what are additional actions that can raise awareness of white counterparts? Now, there are some criticisms of the theory, and one is that the lack of a racial theory in CRT and higher education scholarship has been deemed problematic by some because the framework allows for a description of subjects such as racial inequality, double consciousness, or microaggressions, but with a limited understanding of the means by which these phenomena are structured. The critics say that while insightful, CRT is not a standalone theoretical framework, and these tenets do not contain the intellectual architecture to be considered social theory because CRT needs a theory of racism embedded within it. However, the Black academic faculty status amongst African Americans in U.S. higher education, a seminal article and study from 2000, that examines the status of African American higher education faculty member and their relationship to access and success in the national professor, and compares African American faculty characteristics, experiences, and achievements to the white faculty members. They found that most blacks were systematically and significantly disadvantaged on all measures relative to whites, presenting serious, persistent obstacles to their recruitment, retention, and success. The researchers were able to use CRT to provide a framework to investigate and present the various ways racism in higher education negatively affects Black professors and the impact of social microaggressions leveled against them. CRT provides a way to communicate the experiences and realities of the oppressed.